set.
Good evening. Welcome to the planning board for Tuesday, March 1st. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Tom Young, Chair.
Mike Caprilio, Vice Chair.
Paul Charlie, Walton.
Steve Perry, Selectman Rep.
Jason Garrett, member.
Absent this evening is Michael Croto, Russell Branchett, and Matthew Shoemaker. Seeing no public, there's no public input.
Make him a member. Make him a member for the meeting.
He's,
No.
Or he's an alternate.
Yeah, we have to.
you're voting member this evening?
Am I?
Okay.
You are now.
Okay. Just a note, I'll just step out of line for a second, just get this out of the way. We received an email from a resident concerning some property in town that they had a little misunderstanding about. We sent them the information and corrected it to their satisfaction, and just want to put the letter on file. Jen, master plan update.
Okay. So it's been a little bit of time here since we last looked at the master plan updates. We kind of took a break to work through all the materials for town meeting. Those are now off and doing their thing. So we figured with a light meeting agenda, it'd be a good opportunity to pull this back onto the agenda, pick up where we left off. Just recap a little. So there were 3 chapters we had been working on at various points and stages. The first was the executive summary. Then there was chapter 1, the introduction, goals and objectives, and chapter 8, land use. The last one we really had focused on was land use, and at that point most everything was done, but there were a few spots lingering where there was a little bit of information to be plugged in. At this point, I think we've got most of the remaining information that was missing. I chatted with Troy last week for a little bit to kind of close some gaps. Apparently some of it didn't print right, which irks me. Things bumped onto different pages. So that's where that one is. I mean, anything that's in red text is new since the last time you saw it in October. Yellow highlights things follow up on. There's a couple comment bubbles. Actually, no, there are no comment bubbles remaining in the land use chapter. The executive summary and chapter 1 both have a few comment bubbles with some kind of food for thought discussion points. That's where those all stand. I can either walk through each of those. If you want, you can walk through them if you want, however you want to tackle those. And if I put some discussions and next steps up on the Google site, because at this point we need to kind of decide what to do with these before they continue to sit there. If we leave them, they start to get stale, no longer current. I think last we talked, the thought was just to take a batch, work through them, and then adopt them, and then take another batch and work through them and adopt them, which is probably a good strategy.
If you want, we can take a quick run through tonight and make sure everybody's up to date. See if we can get answers for the bubbles you got,
Okay.
then go from there.
That was page 13, the first.
Which one
Of
are
the
you in?
land use chapter?
Yeah,
Probably it's.
so that's the first read. We're looking for everything else we already talked about, correct?
Yeah, because the remaining stuff here was towards the second half. Let's see. Yes, page 13. So page 13 was is getting at. We kind of flagged this paragraph saying that when we knew more about the new MS4 permit, we'd plug it in, rather than wait for EPA, kind of wrap things up with what we know today, because this is one of those things that for a few years now, we keep hearing, it'll be out soon, a couple more months and it'll be out, and it hasn't been released, so, what's the status there?
Do you even want to put a year in that, or do you want to just?
We could date it, say, status as of,
No, you're putting the bottom, the
Oh,
permit
yes.
in 2016.
yeah.
We're a quarter through almost. Do you
Right.
even want to have a year there?
Oh, you're saying get rid of it?
I mean, if it's been a couple of years
Make
and
it
they've
a
been
little
working
bit more
on it,
generic. Say it's expected some point in the future. Sure.
just leave it more generic.
Okay. So the yellow highlight on the next page, at the top of page 14, that's just simply highlighted because there's a section on page. Where was it? There's another section that's flagged.
18.
Is it on page 18? Somewhere I have a flagged thing about a study that Jason had mentioned, and where is it? This is working. And the main thing was to update when we knew more about the one study.
Oh, it's on the last page, 25.
Is that where it is?
The feasibility study.
Yes.
That's for fire station.
No,
No, that wasn't it.
it's actually page 24 under recommendations. It's a second bullet. And I, again, have a yellow flag that says expand when more information is known. This is one of the things that's in Troy's court that he was looking at. Figure out what the status was.
Did the study come out the fall of 15, or is that supposed to be 16?
He doesn't know. He wasn't sure when I talked to him.
Okay.
So this was one of those Jason items.
I thought he did a study last fall, didn't he?
It's supposed to be all done, but
Oh, whether it was done or not.
He was short-timing it, man.
So obviously, when you expand that, you could change the date if the study was not,
And
did not
where
come
am I
out last
study?
year.
Exactly.
The stormwater study?
No, fire. That's another one.
this is
Capital.
wastewater.
Wastewater.
Yeah.
That's the, yeah, no,
Didn't happen.
no,
Okay.
no.
Maybe just say the study is ongoing and put a period there.
Is it even ongoing?
You bet.
Now you bet. That would be no.
No, it wouldn't be no.
It's just sitting there.
It's in the line.
Okay.
So it's ongoing.
You bet.
Ongoing means it's not done yet.
Yeah, right.
Would it be better if it hasn't truly commenced? Would it be better just to strike that sentence and leave it as a recommendation that it's something that's in the queue, but
So you're saying it hasn't even started yet?
Well,
or had?
I can't really answer that question.
Well, you're a politician tonight.
Which line are we talking about?
So page 24, the second bullet.
I can't, if you can't confirm or deny it ever started, then you should probably strike the sentence because it looks kind of idiotic that we have an ongoing study due last fall that never started. Just my 2 cents.
By the time you move forward with this, we'd have a better answer. How's that?
So leave it as a yellow highlight and
Yeah.
touch base with Troy in the next couple weeks?
Yes.
Sounds good.
And I'll have a conversation with him as well.
Okay.
You wanna change the 15 to 16? Fall of 16?
That's up to you.
Well, see, fall of 15 is already gone.
I would just say the study's ongoing, period.
Yeah.
And take out
Forthcoming.
due the fall, whatever.
Okay.
forthcoming.
Okay, so that.
That's all in that one, right?
Okay. All right, so I'm going backwards now, because we leapt to 24 from 14. So moving forward from 14, the next changes are on page 18. Joan sent me some information for the second bullet under noteworthy projects that I need to add here. About the second parcel of land that was purchased in 2015. The other piece, though, is forest land, correct? Right. So the retires incinerator and recycling center, short description, that's been added as well. And from there, the only other changes on page 25.
Sorry, just
That's it.
wordsmithing.
Yeah,
Transfer station and recycle center were fully operation, null. In 2013.
yes.
And then just, again, a range of materials from cardboard, glass and metals to cell phone, it continues with the list, but that glass and metals, that and should probably go away and just get common.
Okay.
Metals, that two probably go away.
And is there a feasibility study planned for this year for the fire station? Since we mentioned it.
There is a current study being done on the existing
Okay.
fire station to look at the costs of expansion and upgrading. And that'll be used as a baseline for comparison.
It's actually only to see if it's gonna be possible.
Okay. to see if it's possible, and if so, what it would take.
It looks great.
Why does it say fire stations? Is there gonna,
Well,
well, it just doesn't sound right. To identify opportunities to meet local, new town library and expanded fire stations.
Yes, so,
Can't expand one that doesn't exist if you're building a new.
well, it's either expand one or build another.
To get
And
one
that,
north
those
end of
aren't,
town.
that's not decided yet.
yeah,
I hear you.
technically that's right, because I don't see them giving up the station that they got now.
No, I understand that, but it doesn't say a new one. It just says an expanded fire stations, one or more. You can't
Correct.
expand one. It doesn't say, it doesn't speak to a new one. I'm just saying is it should say either a new fire station or a combination of that. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't say what it is we're talking about.
The next sentence goes on to explain the next two sentences.
Oh, I see, yeah.
You go to chapter 1 now, then? So the community design character chapter, is that, when you say interest has been expressed, was that from board members or is that from the town?
Matt.
Okay.
Shoemaker.
Oh, that's right, okay.
Yeah. He brought it up a
Yep.
couple times. I know he felt fairly strongly about it, so I think it's something that we better kind of left until he's here, so give him a chance to
Pitch it.
pitch it.
So what's the purple comment on JC2 about growth being very limited over the last decade? Do you want more of a explanation of growth in that
Well, I
number
guess-
6, or?
I guess the question is where this is stated as a goal, is it really applicable or appropriate, or should
No.
it be revised? Should it be deleted? I mean, here's the challenge. You've had virtually no growth over the last decade. No one in the region has had much of anything for growth over the last decade. And that's pretty much so expected to continue at least for the next few years. Like there's nothing that anyone sees as creating an impetus for sudden growth and expansion in our area. That said, I mean, can you predict that that'll continue another 10 years from now? Will things change? Get a magic 8 ball, crystal ball? We can take a
Pay a
guess.
lot of taxes in this town for not very much services. I can't imagine we here.
Well, for regional growth, you look at that Penningo Road project and everything going on around the airport, that could necessitate
Right.
housing and employees, and
Right,
that's something that's definitely within 10 years. That's within 2 years, probably,
that's
or
true,
now.
that's
Yeah.
true. On the flip side, though, they've also got the
Why
whole
couldn't we
massive
accommodate growth?
Lamont Commons
All it
If
takes
that ever
is money.
starts.
development in Londonderry that'll probably absorb quite a bit of the new population
have
if there's any.
I think growth could continue. I don't see why I couldn't. We have land that's zoned residential,
That's true,
that's not built on.
that's true,
We have regulations that allow building.
that's true.
Well, I don't think we can, if someone wants to build, I don't think that's a problem.
All right,
Yeah, I would leave it.
leave it.
Just leave it like it is,
Okay.
yeah.
Here, where things have changed, I wanted to flag them. You know, where the underlying assumptions that went into drafting these goals have changed since these were last written. Worth kind of flagging them. I did not put any. Well, I lied partially. I did for the majority of the sections here. I did not make any comments on the goals because we haven't really gotten into those chapters to go through and discuss the updates. So left those as is. There was a comment on the community facility section that, goal number 5. We now have since this was written, the impact fee ordinance was adopted and implemented. So the question is, does the verb change? Is there any changes needed? But this is something where it's an easily identifiable action has been taken to implement or act on this particular goal.
If you put impact fees in after cost, that would just explain, the whole thing. In parentheses,
What number you on?
community goals, number 4, sub 5.
What page you on?
So Jen, is your comment that because the impact fees were adopted, that this is not a goal because it's in fact already here? But it's been here already anyway. We've had impact fees for a long period of time.
Were they adopted since 2002 though?
Oh, all right. I don't know.
Were they prior to 2002?
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty sure.
I built in 97 and I thought we had them then.
Okay.
I could be wrong though.
Then I stand corrected.
Well, technically, it's just, maybe it should be stricken altogether
Just
because
take that right out.
the whole number 5. Because it's addressed by impact fees. It's not a goal anymore. It's a requirement.
Yeah, it's not a goal.
It may be confusing if you put impact fees in there, then it may be confusing if someone read it thinking we don't have them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's not a goal, we have it, it's an achieved goal.
Read 3.
What about it?
It's all a matter of opinion, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's very subjective. Jen, I'm sorry, the reason I was lost because I was reading, but if we go back to the, right underneath number 2 comment, number 8 there, is inshore future residential development, should that be inshore, not inshore?
Yeah. I didn't write these.
I'm just saying.
I'm not offended. I probably should proofread it all.
That's what happens, it gets through spell check.
Okay.
Not that they had spell check.
Some of these goals are just
This there was spell check. When this was done.
equal or better than acceptable minimum level of services, accepted minimum standards. I think when you put,
Where? Hold on.
number 4, I mean, these are all kind of a little bit odd, but when you put a goal is to be minimal, and to be the minimal acceptance of something, to me, it's not really a goal, it's not an aspiration, it's more of enough to get by.
Equal to or better than acceptable minimum level. Again, very subjective.
Yeah, how do you quantify that, or how do you?
What it means is, well, the way I read that is that we, as a community, will vote for or not vote for a certain standard. And whatever that standard is, that's the minimum standard.
Yeah, so I think this, kind of putting some context to this, at about the time that this was written, I don't recall what the title of the book was, but there was kind of the guidebook out there.
How to write them.
No, that was specifically based on the number of people you have in your community.
Oh, you should have
You should
this.
have X number of square feet available in your police station, and your town office should have, X number of square feet per capita. It was essentially coming up with some sort of a quantifiable standard of what the norm was considered to be when you are meeting demand based upon your local population. And then they had, number of baseball fields and number of football fields and et cetera based on your town population. And
See, even if you took the word minimum standards out of there and
Right.
said just standards, it's still,
Yeah, it
Right.
just sounds better though.
I know it sounds good. It's kind of like when you say something's to code.
Yeah.
Well, you build something to code,
it doesn't mean
it doesn't mean it's quality built. It just
Yeah.
means it meets a certain standard.
But I think if you
Minimum
take out,
standard.
yeah,
right.
I think, understanding that, but if someone reads this, just randomly decides to read it, they're not gonna make that correlation between graphs from 13 years ago in terms of what was
Right,
minimally acceptable.
Which are also not really used now.
Yeah.
'Cause, they were kind of going out, it was one of those things that's vogue for a certain period of time, and then folks say, it really varies from community to community.
But even at that, like Steve said, even if we take minimum out and say accepted standards, that's a very still subjective term, because what may be acceptable to you may not be.
Exactly.
Right.
Unless we
Again,
use-
again, as I said, read 3, when I
Yes.
told Jason to read that, I mean, that's kind of pretty wide open if you ask me. Provide cost-effective community facilities and services, including but not limited to schools, recreation, fire, police, library services, solid waste disposal, for town residents and businesses consistent with both demand and the town's ability to pay. What exactly is that standard?
You can never define that. Because the town's
Why isn't
ability to
that?
pay is based on
I mean,
whatever's on the ballot.
it's like a fluffy, hey, we're gonna throw this in here to make it
Well,
look
doesn't-
better.
And it doesn't matter what the town's ability to pay for is, because it's
all
got
the
on
budget.
ballot. So even if we could afford it,
It has to be approved by the voters.
Okay, so this is a chapter that we haven't touched yet. And I would say you guys are leaning towards coming up with goals that are more concrete, more quantifiable,
realistic, yeah.
more realistic.
Or
Um,
measurable in a concrete manner.
Exactly.
Would they
But
be
I don't
smart?
think we can do that without kind of delving into that particular chapter itself. And this chapter here should really be directly tied to your CIP. This chapter is kind of looking at what are the needs in your community, what are your different town departments seeing as demands from residents that are unmet, and trying to pair that up and come up with a plan for the future. It's not as concrete as your CIP, which is actually starting to look at, well, what year do we budget these things into? How much do they actually cost? Trying to kind of put the rubber to the road. But this is the chapter, at least, is supposed to be looking at that big picture for what you have and what you need.
My problem is even a CIP, as nice as it is,
Yeah.
It's not.
I can't say I've never seen it used. I can't say anybody's ever said, we need to start planning for that X type of fire truck because CIP says we need it, and the one we have is 20 years old. No. What happens is, hey, this truck's 20 years old, it's falling apart, I need it now.
Right.
You know, it's more reactionary, and I'm not saying we have a fire truck that's got a problem, I'm just using it as an example.
Hypothetical.
It'd be like a building with a
Right.
roof. The plan is in place to say roofs need to be done X many years.
Right, and to help you budget for it.
But the problem is
And/or impact fees, right?
it could be at 15 years, and you say, oh, well, CIP says this building needs a roof. Well, somebody's gonna go up there and say, roof's fine.
So then you
It'll just
update-
disappear.
And see, that's the thing. So here's the thing with your CIP. You should be, not only should you be kind of overhauling it every 5 years, but it should go through an annual update. So,
It needs a better implementation.
well, and that's the other side of it. So I can say, like, kind of using the town of Pelham as an example.
They actually value this.
Yes, and they do an annual update of it. And
Right.
that annual update, Jeff Gowan, their community development director, he coordinates with all of the department managers he's got like his annual survey that they get. This is what you currently have in the CIP. Is this still accurate? Are there things that are now more pressing or are less pressing? Do that update. They do the survey. Jeff collects all of those information sheets, and then that gets plugged into the overall big spreadsheet and plan. But it's an annual update and an annual two-way conversation between the different town departments and the planning staff that are putting it together. So that's what it takes to have a CIP that's kind of an ongoing tool that you use for forecasting what your needs are in the community and budgeting for them as well.
I know exactly what the problem is. If we tried to budget money to put aside to reduce costs down the road, people would think we were crazy. Because that's the reaction we would receive.
Yep.
It's the action we receive
I don't
now.
think so. I don't think so. I think it's a whole different problem, but it's not something we can solve here.
Exactly. It's not
Yeah.
something we can solve here.
But there's
So-
a way to solve it.
So until then, your goals stay kind of squishy.
So again, CIPs, I think they're good, but in a town like ours, it's a reference guide. It's not used as a tool.
Okay,
But in a town like Pelham, much bigger,
right.
they have more infrastructure. They actually use it as an asset. I don't know. Doesn't help them with schools and stuff like that most of the time, but they get us their stuff eventually.
Well, they get their nice new fire station.
Yes, they did.
You got a whole town center complex going on.
Yep.
They sure do.
The schools and everything all right there.
They've put a lot of work into it. Takes quite a bit.
And they get the new rotaries.
It also takes money,
Exactly.
money from business.
Exactly. Okay, so what are we doing with these community facility goals at this point? Anything, or kind of acknowledging that we don't like them and it's on the to-do list with the chapter?
They need to be streamlined and buttoned up.
Okay.
There's a lot of extra verbiage per se that I don't think you need. Maybe keep the whole idea of them, but I just think it's almost went too extreme.
Okay.
So make them tighter. Is number 7 on the land use one, circumventional highway? Is that what you're,
Yeah,
going back to
that's-
that monster
that's-
again?
That's coming up again. That'll be coming up within the next couple of months.
Bridge crossing
Yep,
as a conversation.
yep.
But not the whole circumventional highway system?
Nope.
Just access? Kind of like the airport bridge. A way to get over the water?
It's a way to get over the water. I think that's as far as anyone is willing
Yep.
to discuss it.
Without a boat. A way a car can get over the water. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
So what it comes down to is DOT still holds all that land.
Yeah.
And they're starting to get some pressure to determine whether it's needed or not,
Ever.
ever. So we're getting put on the hot seat to sit down with communities and discuss it and report back to DOT on what local interest is in a third bridge crossing.
Guarantee that ain't
DOT owned land is
Ain't happening
is
either.
down in here, so. The question would be somewhere in this general vicinity.
I think the end cost of the bridge that happened up at the airport, coupled with the location that this would be in relation to the bridge that's already in place in Hudson,
It's right there.
it'll never happen.
Too far north.
The only thing you can't,
Cost is definitely a big limiting factor. You know, you think about what made it into the 10-year plan.
That one's not shovel ready.
No.
Well, based on the way the 10-year plan is already programmed at the state level, it's for this current round that's in legislature under review now. There was only room in the last 2 years of the plan for approximately $6 to $7 million worth of projects per region. You can't build a bridge for $6 to $7 million.
67 million.
I
I know.
Oh, yeah, exactly. 67, sure. But 6 to 7, no. So anything that was a major infrastructure investment, anything that required building something new as opposed to repairing something existing, scored very low on the evaluation criteria that we had to use. So things like that just didn't rise to the level
The
of,
mere location of it's the problem.
A major problem.
unless you ask the folks in Nashua in that neighborhood, they'd beg to differ.
Yeah, but they're a very small group.
Yeah.
Because
They were vocal
it's-
enough they killed it, 10 years ago.
I mean, it looks, really all you're gonna do is alleviate the traffic going over the other bridge in Hudson.
Exactly,
That's all you're gonna do.
correct.
And I can't say that the state's ever gonna feel that that need is there. It gets busy and you
Right.
can be stuck in traffic and maybe a couple cycles of lights.
Hudson and Nashua will beg to differ with you.
Yeah.
You know, from their perspective, it'd make a huge impact, a huge, it's particularly Hudson. You talk to anyone in Hudson and they're gonna say the number one transportation priority they see is that bridge and finishing the circumferential highway. Number one transportation
Hudson would
priority
benefit
from their
more
perspective.
from extending the roadway for the circumventional highway from exit 2 up to 102 and 111. Because Lowell Road's a mess. They would seek, that would be the biggest relief of the whole project. Just building that.
So one of the fun things that our transportation staff are gonna be working on is updating the travel demand model. So they're gonna be plugging these things in to see what the actual impacts would be and where things would change if you were to create the
Imagine.
different pieces.
Realistic, could you imagine if that bridge at exit 2 dumped you onto 102 further on up? That'd be awesome. That's the way you should do it.
Yeah.
Sell it.
It's a lot cheaper too, isn't it?
So stay tuned.
Litchfield doesn't want it,
On
you
a-
go
on
from
a-
Route 3 to 102 with no exit in between.
So on a separate subject, but related, what Tom's alluding to is Julie Chismis and myself are going to be organizing 3 different conversations across the region for May and June that are going to be focused on what are the major transportation project improvements that are needed in the region. We've got this big long laundry list of projects that different communities have suggested. There are no projects listed from Litchfield. Just kind of put that bug out there that you guys could have projects listed. And that what it is this goes into our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which goes out 20 to 30 years, depending on when we're updating it and looking out to.
New roadway projects or?
Improvements,
Improvements
safety
of existing.
improvements, new infrastructure, et cetera. It's gotta be stuff that it qualifies for state funding or federal funding. That's where we're focused. We pull those in, we evaluate them, we rank them, put them in our long-range plan. Then we pull from that long-range plan when the state asks for new projects to go into the 10-year plan.
When you
And then-
talk to Troy,
Yes.
please mention that to him,
Will.
because I'll have the conversation with him as well.
Okay,
So that hopefully he'll be ready to
okay.
give you a couple of,
Yeah. So the plan is in May and June, we're gonna have these conversations to kind of go through the laundry list. Because we've got things in this laundry list that are legitimately 20-plus years old, that have just been sitting there. There are folks who don't even know what some of the projects are. Because they've just been sitting there that long, and staff turnover and board turnover, but that there's things that we just don't know what the scope is, but no one wants to delete it for fear of losing money. And what we really need to do is say, listen, if we have other things that are bigger priorities, let's get those listed and let's clean out the stuff that's just been lingering, that's no longer a real
Yeah.
vision for a
Plus a
community.
couple, the money that was there
Right.
would no longer do it anyway.
Right, so, exactly. So the goal is to clean up that list, get a really good, solid list, and then re-adopt the project list portion of our long-range transportation plan this coming winter. So that's the goal.
excellent.
So that kind of ties into that bridge conversation. So I don't know if we resolved anything about goal number 7 under the land use section.
As long as it's still an option out there, you have to keep it, don't you? I mean, until the state ever gives them the land back, which they never will.
Right, and I think this could, it could be major highway or major roadway projects being completed. Anywhere where you've got your commercial centers, you've got, those are focused along state routes, which are technically considered highways. So were there to be any roadway improvements along those corridors?
Yeah, I would add roadway in because highway, people think of Litchfield, we don't really have highways. We
Yeah.
have 3A, but people don't consider that like 93 or
Yeah.
Route 3. You know.
And I would also, to a certain.
Well, it's Charles Bancroft Highway.
I know.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's one lane each way.
I'm almost thinking that the verb needs to change, because what happens is you have your site plan regs do have commercial design guidelines. I mean, that's what we built off of to draft the multifamily design guideline piece. So that is fairly substantial. So I almost feel like it should be pursue implementation of the town's proactive site plan. To acknowledge that you have something, but you want to make sure that they're utilized.
No, that sounds good. It's funny it was worded that way, because in 2002, you would think we would have had site plan design standards, right? Can't imagine we didn't.
Yeah, I don't know.
So why would you pursue proactive site plan design standards as a goal when you should have had them in place already?
Unless those were adopted afterwards, I'm not sure. Can look. I don't know if the site plan regs say when each of the sections were adopted.
Actually, I'm gonna say that was probably because back then, when I first got on this board, the biggest thing that people talked about every time commercial was brought up was the mess that Daniel Webster Highway is down in Nashua.
Oh.
Oh,
And how all the businesses had separate entrances onto the roadway.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that none of them were connected, and through time, they've been getting connected, but.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if it wasn't derived from something like that.
Could be.
But we cover that currently, right?
Mhm.
In terms of curb
We
cuts
do
and
now,
entrances?
yes, we
Yeah.
do.
So
Yeah.
that should be adjusted.
Because when we did the commercial site plan, that was one of the things that
Yep.
we were adding into it.
So we just update that bullet to.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of thought back in the time that that was a roadway that was put in with no idea of how it was ever gonna be built,
Mhm.
all around it.
So what are your thoughts on the easement? The back lot? And the only one we have is that development, right, what we've done recently where Mrs. Parent wanted access to, is that what that's referring to? She had an easement to the back lot that was landlocked from
That was
the,
like a specific
Yeah.
site.
I know.
Yeah,
I don't see how it's a goal because
yeah,
it's in the code anyway, isn't it?
I didn't know what this was in reference to.
Number
On
nine?
page
Nine.
6, number 9, at the top of the page.
I hate the word encourage anyway.
It's very
It's not really a
vague.
goal, it's something you're changing your site plan stuff versus a goal. I mean, it's either something you do as a town or you don't. Like, that's not really a goal, is it?
It's not, it's an attitude.
Yeah.
yeah.
Or it's a decision. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a,
The goal would
I think
be
it's-
preservation of
it's an
agricultural.
odd place to have it.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't fit the rest of the other ones.
Yeah, it means nothing there, really.
So the goal, would you say preserve agricultural lands and just chop out?
Well, the goal, well, here's the thing, is
I
if,
agree.
if a goal is, the goal is to encourage, we met it. What did you meet?
Yeah.
Well, then it comes down to who. Who do you want to preserve it? So if you say preserve agricultural lands, are you implying that the town must do that preservation? Or are you trying to get private individuals to do that preservation?
Are we on number 10 or 9? I thought we were talking
10.
number 9. I was talking number 9, the easement.
I agree.
The 50 to
We
75
jumped.
feet thing.
Yeah,
Oh, we jumped. All right.
It's okay.
So 9 we're eliminating.
Well, no, it's encourage anyway. They're all
I
encourage.
think-
I hate encourage.
10's easier to address the encourage issue.
But 9 we're striking. It's just,
Unless
There's no reason to have it as a
Think of
goal.
what this is.
Which one, 10 or 9?
9.
in 2002, what was going on?
50 to 75 feet. I don't know why that would be enlarged to 75 feet.
I know why.
Why?
Because nobody liked it.
What, 50? What?
Nobody liked backlots. That's why they said increase the buffers. Maybe it lessens the likeliness that they happen.
They'll encourage the easement to get to backlots.
Encourage doesn't mean anything. Nobody's doing nothing with encourage.
Well, it's not a requirement.
Okay, so this is saying if you have a back lot, you
I don't
need
know
to
why.
somehow acquire a 75-foot easement
If you
instead of a
want to.
50-foot easement if you want to do anything with your back lot?
That's the way I read it.
This doesn't say anything. This says if it's 50, it's whatever.
Yeah.
It just means encourage. Do you want 75? No? Oh,
If the person doesn't want it, you
It
don't
means
do
nothing.
it.
Could you please make it 75?
We encourage you to.
Eliminate it.
It should be changed in the regulations, that if you wanna change it, it shouldn't be a goal, I mean.
If the goal is to change it, then that's what you state. The goal is to enlarge from 50 to 75, and once you meet it, then you've accomplished your goal.
All right, so my goal is that we just strike it.
Yeah, strike it.
My goal's complete, I can go.
I encourage you to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I encourage us to hurry up.
Shouldn't 10 say encourage the town to preserve agricultural land?
Why is it the town's duty?
Because the town doesn't have to buy it outright, they could do other things to,
If it's not the town's
Preserve.
land, why should the town be responsible for trying to preserve it?
because they want the town, because the town has said in the surveys, they want the town.
You're talking
look
two
like-
different things.
Yeah.
You're talking town as in the Board of Selectmen. He's talking, no?
I'm talking in
Okay.
general.
Town, like, the town puts up the
The
money to buy
folks.
the development rights, or,
I encourage you to be more specific, Terry.
I don't wanna be.
That's all, I just asked you to say.
Why do you say encourage?
That ends
That
there.
means nothing. I hate him.
I agree with Jason on this.
I agree too. And what happens is you get a planner who's not enabled to put words in your mouth and commit you to doing something, so that you get things that are written as encourage,
And-
that are
and-
written
and-
weekly.
And discourage. What does that mean? It means
If
nothing.
it's not unlawful, then discourage means nothing.
I mean, if you wanna go back, you can go back to 6. Encourage development is keeping with local character. Well, you can strike that one too, because that's already in our regs.
Right.
that's
True.
how everybody's master plan starts, to preserve the rural character.
That's what I'm saying. All those things that are already written down in statute, that should go away.
Well, what if it's more like continue efforts to ensure that development is in keeping with local character?
That's different.
That's much better.
That's different. That means we're actually doing something.
Right. Because you never know, local character could change.
It's like 12. 12's a good one.
Yes. All right, so you want to go through the ones that have yucky encourages?
Yeah, number 8's good. Provide. We're gonna do
Well,
something.
we got to go up to number 2.
We have that now as open space preservation already,
You do.
in conservation zoning.
You are right.
How did you just word the last one?
Continue.
Continue efforts to ensure.
Bam, do it there too.
You can almost do that at the
Please
top.
get rid of it.
You could almost go continue efforts
Yeah, you can get rid
to,
of it.
colon, and list them.
We could do that.
Well,
But
You
let's
can't
see.
get rid of
But on
two.
open space preservation and conservation zoning, you've only had one development that's come in and utilized it, and that application of it was based upon the intent, the stated intent of the ordinance. I would say successful.
would you?
Would you?
Yeah.
I would. I mean, the intent was to ensure that the houses were clustered, minimize the amount of land that's impacted, and preserve the maximum amount of land possible.
The only thing I don't like that happened up there is the houses are too big on the smaller lots, but you can't regulate for that.
You're not gonna change that.
Right.
And that's what happens when you continue to,
Well, that's what happens when the
Minimize
land
the
costs
lots.
so much too. They have to build bigger house to get their money out of it.
because those ordinances are only gonna be used if it's beneficial to the developer.
No, they're only gonna be used if they come in with 20 acres or more. It will be used unless they don't have water or some other factor. That's what the ordinance says.
No, they have to give it to us as an option.
No, they have to come in with it, show us their yield plan, and if they don't have water or some other extenuating circumstances, they can get out of it.
They have to do a conditional use permit, and there's stated conditions that they have to meet to not cluster. If they're 20 acres or larger.
No problem. Subdivide it into a 19-acre lot 3 times.
We've been
You
that
can do
route.
anything you want at that point. Sorry. If a developer is gonna make more money selling a house on a 1-acre lot, he's gonna build them on 1-acre lots. End of story.
And there's nothing in your ordinance that says what the maximum lot size is.
Right.
Just that they need to be clustered. And that they're allowed a reduced, minimum lot size. And they're allowed a reduced minimum frontage. But the layout needs to be such that they are at least clustered in an area that minimizes their footprint, and sets aside permanent green space.
So they
No
can
matter
still
how
have
damp it
neighbors.
is.
No matter how what?
No matter how damp it is.
Sure.
I would say, one of the weaknesses of your ordinance is that you don't specify what the, open space percentage is as a fraction of the overall lot size. And that's what gives the developer their wiggle room to decide how truly clustered they are or not.
So with number 2, encourage open space preservation, conservation zoning. To me, that, again, it's not a goal. What that is something soft and fluffy. If our goal, or our intent is to maximize open space preservation and conservation zoning, then it should be something as in developing or creating those incentives. Create an incentive to,
The incentive's already built in. As she worded the last one, continue to,
well, and so be it, but
So
the
this
point
one, I
is
think
if
it's
that's,
almost a monitor your existing ordinance to ensure that it has the desired effect of,
right,
achieving or creating open space preservation and conservation zoning.
right. Right.
Because at this point, you've got it, you need to make sure it does what it's intended to do.
Right.
And make modifications if needed.
I don't think we have to write all that, but, yep.
Right out of it. No.
so if we're gonna be going this way, 3, that's fine.
Yep.
Yep,
4, that's fine.
yep.
5,
Well,
that's not fine.
well, I don't know if I'm even good with promote and encourage is the same thing. I mean, what are we trying to accomplish? So you gotta figure out what we're trying to accomplish and make a goal that will get us there, if we're not there. And if we are there, the goal has to be how to continue it and measure it. Again, promoting means what? Are we gonna take an ad out in the paper?
Or you can get rid of promote and just put use.
But even when the encourage or promote, from Conservation Commission's perspective, that's saying to us that you want us to go out and look at large tracts, and you want us to go out and try and conserve farmland. And I don't have a problem with encourage or promote. You're saying that doesn't have enough teeth, encourage?
It's not a goal, is what I'm saying, Joan. A goal should be something that we're trying to achieve. It's not, again, unless, of course, our goal is to just,
Remember, you can
Okay,
have
goals.
hierarchies. So you can
Of
have
course.
a goal, which is a really squishy thing. And you can have an objective, which is what do you actually expect the outcome to be? And then you have the actions of how you get there. So you got your tier, so you only have that high level goal. You don't have a full implementation plan that says, okay, I'm gonna take this goal and now I'm gonna put some actionable items to it. How do I make this happen? And that's what's not here.
maybe the idea is, it's not a goal. It's not a land use goal. It's a land use philosophy.
It is a goal, but like you said,
It's a
it's not
goal.
an objective.
Right.
Yeah,
You need steps to get to an objective.
I hear you. I guess we're arguing semantics now, but I come from a different place.
I understand and I agree that sometimes they're so squishy that they don't have meaning.
It's a waste of, I mean, it's an exercise in.
It's
in
filling
what?
white space.
Yeah, it's filling white space. What's the point? If we're gonna, it's almost, and if it is about mission statement, then that we create, that quite honestly, instead of numbering all these weird things, you say our land use goals, we summarize it in a paragraph and we move on. We're gonna promote these things and off we go.
That's a little too squishy.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm just saying, I don't think that serves anything other than we're creating work for ourselves.
So I think, if looking at 5, we have to ask who the audience is. And that's what we need to identify first. And if the audience is other people, the best you can do is encourage. Because sometimes you can't, if the audience is not somebody you can mandate or force, or you can't do it yourself, but you want other people to do, you can encourage, you can promote, you can beg, you can plead, but you can't guarantee.
But I think a good example would be, if conservation came to the selectmen and said, okay, we want to buy 150 acres. And the selectmen said, no, what do you want to do that for? We could turn to the master plan and say, well, you're supposed to be encouraging preservation of large tracts of land.
Are you gonna come forward with an appraisal on the property?
I guess we are, we have to tell meeting.
Then we'd be okay with it.
You didn't have to force us, so we would have done it.
Well, I mean, right there, C, it says goals and objectives, right? So as we're going down here, I don't see any objectives. It says goals and objectives.
You're right. It's goals.
Well, would the objectives be a separate list?
Perhaps, but
Well, the objective is to encourage everybody to do things.
That's right.
just saying, it's just,
Good point. I would say strike and objectives unless you want to sit here and write objectives. I think what's more meaningful is to create an implementation chapter instead of just adding objectives. I think your goals are specific enough that you could go straight from goal to
and I guess that's.
action items under implementation.
And that would make me a lot more comfortable in saying, these are things that we want to do, and then this is how we're gonna go do them. I guess I'd feel much better with that myself. Because I'm just thinking of a big piece of paper that says a bunch of fluffy stuff with,
Yep.
it means nothing.
It's like this computer. It's worth nothing right now. Can't open anything.
I noticed you're using your phone instead of.
It's a good thing I have good eyesight.
Why don't you use that?
This?
Yeah.
Because it won't open anything.
Why?
Probably because my kids use it.
That'll do it every time.
I was just wanting to root cause it out.
Kids or your wife.
I need to encourage people to stop.
That's with your computer.
I encourage you to
Downloading
change your password
And
and you'll
how
be
are
all
you gonna
set.
implement that?
I am not, because I'm not home enough.
Change your password. Boom, done.
I'd have to know how to do that.
And then remember what the password is.
Yeah, and then he has to tell them what it is, because he can't remember it.
That's why you have a wife.
We set my son with a separate user ID. I don't want him mucking with my stuff anymore. He's got his own.
Yeah, the
little-
profile. You click
he's
on your
got his
face.
own
and-
profile.
yeah.
He goes in as him.
Their own computer.
No,
Yeah, we've already started that.
he's got an iPad. That's enough for now.
Truthfully, all I need is an iPad. Had those too.
Had.
That's what kids do. They appropriate this stuff.
Mine came in freaking out. It's making weird noises and it sounds like there's voices coming through the computer. Great. Why don't you log out of some of the things you're in?
Oh, kids.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you want to turn chapter 1 into introduction, goals, and implementation plan?
Yeah.
It's gonna take a lot of work.
I'd
It's
rather
one
work
year.
on something beneficial than,
Okay. I am fine, and frankly, I think an implementation, plan should be in every master plan. Things becoming trendy, implementation plans didn't really become the hot item until after this, so.
10 years from now, we're gonna look at it and say, this implementation plan.
Well,
the
things
heck
have
is
already
that?"
gone beyond implementation plans now. So implementation plans started becoming popular, shortly after this was adopted. Since then, now it's adding, you add performance measurement to that. How are you going to measure your implementation?
So we're doing this, should we add that into it too? Why be behind all the time? Why don't we be on the
Well, and
cutting
because-
edge?
You can do that.
because every business in the world does that.
Donald Trump would do that.
Would he?
Yeah. It'd be great again.
He'll do it better than all of us.
Just so you wait and see.
Hold your breath.
Okay. All right, so we will start creating an implementation section. That means you have to come up with at least one actionable item for every single goal you have listed here.
Which make less goals.
Got that right.
Well, some of your goals you might start to look at and go, yeah, I don't need that.
But seriously, that's the point.
Or you may start to merge some of your goals,
So early.
is what you may discover, that some
Most
of your
of
goals
them in
are
there can be.
That's right.
redundant. So, okay, so what I would say is let's table this discussion of wordsmithing.
Okay.
I understand you don't like encourage and discourage.
But do you know that we don't wanna see it in there too often? I would encourage.
My thesaurus is gonna get worn out. So I will think of some ways so that we can kind of refine this and work through it. How about, I'm trying to think of a good way to kind of tackle this in a time-sensitive manner.
Which one, the done quickly?
No, not so that we get it done necessarily quickly, but maybe that this is one of those things that you can kind of divide and conquer. And rather than sitting here and having a group brainstorm on implementation items for every single goal and beating the death out of every single goal, one of the ways it might work better would be to, gasp if I might suggest, each person take a section and look at the goals and edit the goals as you see fit, and then come up with a couple actionable items, one or more actionable items under each goal, and then we bring that back. I take each person's, merge it together, and then we can read a draft and discuss a draft rather than have to sit here from scratch and discuss.
And my opinion, Tom, what you do is you go through this thing and say, you got here to here, you got here to here, just.
Yeah, I think
Because otherwise, we'll all just,
What I'll do is go through and divide it out and send an email out.
yeah, who's got
there you
what?
go. Okay. And we don't have to get through all of them at once. We can
Right.
each take one and just do a batch of them, and then we can get through that batch, and then we can do the next batch. And that's fine. I'm just trying to spare you having to have painful meetings.
Oh, because it'll take forever if we discuss to
Right.
death every single one.
Exactly, and have to sit and come up with each actionable item
No,
from
it's just-
scratch at the meeting. And it's not, it's something that has to come from you, the voices at the table, as opposed to necessary, I can help add ideas for how you can implement something. So if you're stuck on one and you're like, what the heck do you do with this? How do you achieve this? I can kind of throw out some strategies that you might want to think about.
Yeah. The only thing is, if you have questions, send them to Jen,
Yeah,
Yes,
instead of to all.
Yeah.
right, and then each person take their piece and send it to me.
Yeah.
I'll compile it all, so you
Send it
have,
out.
Yeah, to
yeah, so
Tom.
you then have a full version. Yeah. Yeah, to copy Tom on everything.
Mhm.
Yeah. Please.
Fill his inbox.
He's lonely anyway.
This is his retirement job.
I'll tell you what, with the pipeline site, my inbox gets full very
Yes,
fast.
it does.
What pipeline?
Yeah.
So, okay, all right. So let's leave that where that is.
The executive will leave for another night.
I don't know that there was even much on it.
It's just, there's a lot of bullets on it.
What did I do? Did I make some edits here? I don't remember. It's a lot of just general updates,
Yeah.
bringing things up to date. That's it. So yeah, that's an easy one to save for next time. Okay.
Okay. Joan, home occupation.
Yeah, half of them in. There were no changes on any of them. Could you pass these up to Tom? Thank you.
Just have to read them, right?
Probably just read them and make them one big motion.
Yeah. Do we have to read them all?
Have they been checked?
Yeah, I checked them
Yeah.
if there was any changes.
Yeah.
They all paid their fee.
Want me to do it?
Then you can just read the name.
Yeah, just read the names.
Nice to know what's in town.
Make a motion to approve the following home occupancy permits, occupation permits. Teresa's Massage, sorry, Therapeutic Massage. Wait, let's start again. I make a motion to renew the home occupation permits for the following businesses. What are the names of the business? There's no name for the
It's Rhonda.
so just do the name. For Rhonda Cavers, 4 Oak Drive, Kelly Douglas, 49 Burgess, Deborah Hunenkamp, 579 Charles Bancroft Highway, Raymond Peoples, 205 Charles Bancroft Highway, Nancy Pinaccio, 10 Broadview Drive, Alfred Craccio, 16 Bear Run, Lori Summer, 38 Stark Lane, and Holly Sutherland, 13 Forest Lane.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Passes 500. I gotta sign these after. Okay. Minutes for February 2nd.
Yeah, and I just noticed that on my cutting and pasting, minutes weren't, these are not approved on February 2nd. So up there on the top.
We just assume, well, back in time. I make a motion to accept the minutes of the February 2nd meeting as amended with the removal of the approval of February 2nd. Follow that.
Any questions or comments?
Have a second.
Second?
Sure. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
I abstain.
Passes 401.
Oh,
Nope.
302.
302, oh, sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yep.
302.
Well, Paul, you weren't here for the meeting, so you can't vote in the minutes, can you?
203.
203.
You get
Still
what you want.
counts.
You can vote if you're not, even if you're not here.
You can vote in the minutes?
Mhm.
Oh, you can? I'm mistaken. 302. That's the final number.
Primaries
Okay,
aren't gonna come in like that tonight.
Okay, anything else? Anybody have any comments?
I'm gonna say Tom, Joan, Jen, all received an email from Troy today
Yep.
Yes.
about heavy construction site plan regulations.
Yes.
I'd just suggest that we add this to a future agenda.
Yep.
Making sure that you all received it. You might wanna even put it on the sites or send it out to the rest of the board.
I'll send it
just
out to the rest. I wasn't
just so
sure how
I know
many
what
had
it
got it.
It's just an effort. Some towns, Temple and Fitzwilliam have already adopted, and it would be heavy equipment to construct like the pipeline, things like that.
Did you get it,
To
Jen?
do regulations on
Did.
doing it.
We're not getting one.
Well, in case we do, we have their plan.
They can only use pickaxe and shovels?
Sure.
It's an interesting plan.
I didn't read through it.
Yeah.
I opened it, looked at it, made sure it was all there, but I didn't read through it.
The beginning looked interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other business? Our next meeting will be on March 15th at 7 o'clock. If you would like to come and join us, feel free to do so.
Just a reminder, your next meeting is your annual meeting.
Oh, yes, next meeting is the annual meeting, we vote for officers.
Also, the hearing for the multifamily site plan review.
Yep.
Is scheduled for the next meeting as well.
Yep.
Do you want me to do kind of the overview, this is what we do, that I did last year?
Yep.
Okay. This is what our bylaws say? Because as part of your annual meeting, you're supposed to review your bylaws. Okay.
You have a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0-0.
You just assume nobody would say no.